Well, my name is Mike Shealy, and I am also in this race with a lot of other good candidates up here. And one thing that they said, what is your one trait that you bring with you? Well, it's my experience. I don't want to hold anything against Michael Deming, but I have 40 years of experience working with companies like Stern Frazier, Bechtel Corporation, Raytheon. And I've been solving problems and fixing things all my life. Now the question is, why are you in this race? Well, the reason I'm in this race is because, like you, like everyone out here, we know what's fixing to happen to us if we don't get the right kind of people back into Washington. The one thing that's been lacking in Washington is just a few small traits called honesty, integrity. You can go ahead and laugh because there's none of it back there. You know, Tom Tancredo once said that, why would you go back there? It's nothing but a pit of snakes. Well, I'd like to say it's not a pit of snakes. It's a den of thieves. They're robbing my grandkids' future. Now, I got into this thing and I made one commitment because whenever, I had run for office once before, it was back in '94, we won't go there. But I did make one commitment when I found out what it would take to run for this office. The man told me it's going to take money, lots of it, message, and then candidate. Well, I made a commitment very early on that I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to make it about me. Because if you don't have any faith in me, money doesn't make any difference. So I've not accepted or solicited any funds until now. My stop sign is up. Thank you very much, Franklin, for putting this thing on.
What he says.
Thank you all for hosting this. I certainly appreciate it, and for the opportunity to chat with you all this evening. Some of you for the 5th or 6th or 10th time. But I appreciate your involvement in this process. My name is sias. I am running because, first and foremost, because my wife and I are very proud parents of 3 young children. We have a 6-year-old daughter, a 2-year-old son, and a 3-month-old son. And we are bound and determined to make sure that those kids grow up in a country that is safe, secure, stable, prosperous, and free, and not voluntarily bankrupt. And we are also determined to make sure that folks like my 87-year-old mom don't wind up having their last years dictated by a bunch of government bureaucrats. And my sincere wish is to very humbly go to Washington as I went overseas, which when I went overseas it was as a citizen soldier. I would like to go to Washington as a citizen statesman. Use a little bit of common sense, restore the republic, follow the Constitution, and use my deep background in the private sector and in the military to help rebuild this economy the right way and to keep America safe. I've been fortunate to have been raised by an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur, and I've worked with dozens of them trying to build businesses and jobs here in Colorado. I've also been really privileged to serve in the military for 23 and a half years now, and it's still ongoing. Been overseas a number of times, and I've certainly, my experience is pale compared to what some of my colleagues have done. But I do think that I bring some valuable experience to the very important decisions that members of Congress make in deciding how we spend our tax dollars, and also how we make decisions about sending our young people overseas and putting them in harm's way. It would be my tremendous honor to serve you. I look forward to chatting through the issues tonight. Again, thanks very much for the opportunity to be here.
Start with our first question. What are the first 2 bills that you would propose upon being elected to the House of Representatives? We'll start with Michael Deming.
First 2 bills I would propose. Number 1, repeal the 16th Amendment. I would like to get the IRS out of our paychecks. I don't think it's right that a babysitter up the street has to worry about if she made over $1,000 in a year government forms. Number two, as sort of mentioned earlier, I'd like to repeal the Federal Reserve Act. I think what they've done by making easy dollars available is game the system. Everybody's trying to look to game it, and then it all comes crashing down, but the guys in the know knew it was going to crash, so they still stopped it. That's my two.
Thank you for the question. We have to put America's prosperity first again. I think there are two things I would like to propose initially. First, we need to look at ways in which we can cut the corporate tax rate from 35% down to at least 5%. We need to eliminate capital gains and dividend tax rates to ensure that we're driving additional private business investment. That's how you get America back to work. That's how you create jobs. And I would also propose that we also lower the two lowest tax brackets from 15% down to 10 and 10% down to 5. Now, second thing, I would also propose a balanced budget amendment. I don't know about you, folks, it's time. Every year since 1957, this Congress has proved an inability or unwillingness to balance its budget. It's time that we the people stood up and time that we forced our Congress to balance its budget. Thank you.
I've given a little bit of thought to these first two bills, but in engineering, first thing that you do is you figure out what the real problem is. And the real problem that we face in this country is the inability for people in Washington to follow the Constitution. So the first bill that I would like to see passed is a bill that says no new laws can be passed unless you identify in the enumerated powers or in the Constitution your authority to do so. But you have to back this thing up, not by court decisions, but by the words of the founding fathers and what they said when they wrote it and what they meant. If you do that, all the problems will go away because you won't be getting into the mess we're in. And the second would be don't spend anything on any program if we don't have the money to do it.
I remember what Ronald Reagan said, there's no limit to what we can accomplish if we don't care who gets the credit. And bearing that in mind, I would sign on to a bill that is proposed right now by Representatives Pence and Sarling that would limit our spending to 20% of GDP. And throughout our most productive 60 years in our history, our spending was at around 18 or 19% of GDP. It has recently gone up to about 25% and is headed north from there. I would very much support that legislation. I would also support legislation too, and listen very carefully to what I say here, comprehensive immigration reform, and my definition of comprehensive is securing the border, and securing the border, and focusing also on workplace enforcement, a tamper-proof social security card, and a mandate and funding for ICE to actually cooperate with state and local governments.
Would you make a commitment to stop the erosion of individual rights? And how would you do that? We'll start with Ryan Frazier.
I really don't need to sit down. I can stand up here. Folks, I don't know about you, but I am tired of a government that continues to overreach and trample our individual rights. How about you? This is why I would support, some have called for the passing the Enumerated Powers Act. I would support any legislation that would require that for every piece of legislation that comes through the United States Congress, that they tie to that a constitutional note that says where in this document does the Congress derive the authority, the enumerated power, to pass that legislation. I believe if we did that, that would be one of the single biggest steps we could take to protecting our individual rights. Thank you.
We could stand up and we can take some more time talking about this, but Brian, thank you for signing on my first bill.